Hello, we are members of the Wolverhampton Amnesty Group, and we want to read some poems as part of the Festival of Social Justice. Now, the first poem is by Cecil Rajendra, who comes from Malaysia, and he actually donated this poem to Amnesty. In the case of the other poems you'll hear, copyright is retained by the poet. The first poem is the Animal and Insect Act. Finally, in order to ensure absolute national security, they passed the Animal and Insect Emergency Control and Discipline Act. Under this new act, buffaloes, cows and goats were prohibited in grazing in herds of more than 3. Neither could birds flock, nor bees swarm. This constituted unlawful assembly. As they had not obtained prior planning permission, mud wasps and swallows were issued with summary notices to quit. Their homes were declared subversive extensions to private property. Monkeys and miners were warned to stop relaying their noisy morning orisons until an official broadcasting license was issued by the appropriate ministry. Unmonitored publications and broadcasts posed the gravest threats in times of a national emergency. And similarly, woodpeckers had to stop tapping their Morse code messages from coconut tree top to champaka tree. All messages subject to a thorough pre-scrutiny by the relevant authorities. Java sparrows were arrested in droves for rumour mongering. Cats suspected of conspiracy had to be indoors by 9 o'clock. Cicadas and crickets received notification to turn their amplifiers down. Ducks could not quack, turkeys gobble during restricted hours. Need I say, all dogs, Alsatians, Dachshunds, Terriers, Pointers, even little Chihuahuas, were muzzled. In the interests of security, penguins and zebras were ordered to discard their non-regulation uniforms. The deer had to surrender their dangerous antlers. Tigers and all carnivores with retracted claws were sent directly to prison for concealing lethal weapons. And by virtue of Article 4, paragraph 2b, subsection 16, under no circumstances were elephants allowed to break wind between the hours of 6 and 6. Their farts could easily be interpreted as gunshot. Might spark off a riot. A month after the act was properly gazetted, the birds and insects started migrating south. The animals went north, and an eerie silence handcuffed our forests. There was now total security.
Thank you. The next poem is by a refugee called Azad Essa. I think it is called We Are Struggling to Understand. I feel that he's actually put together how refugees must feel in the middle of 2 different worlds that they don't really belong in either. So We Are Struggling to Understand by Azad Essa. We are the middle children of history, he said. Ours is that dislocation between spirit and destiny, faith and question, integrity and fascination. We are the middle children of history, he said. Ours is the time of romantic, solar-powered watches, paperless documents, controlled births, political hungers, and negotiated hate. For we are the middle children of history. He said, ours is the moment of anthems without nations, sciences without compassion, freedoms without expression. Again, we are the middle children of history. He said, ours is that aspect of modernity, that historical moment of interminable self-deception, since we are the middle children of history, he said, and we are struggling to understand.
Now, in 1517, there was a riot in London protesting. What? Sorry. Protesting against immigrant workers. At the time, Sir Thomas More was the Sheriff of London, and he went to calm things down. What we have now is Shakespeare's version of the speech that Thomas More made, responding to the rioters' demand, "Let the strangers be removed." Grant them removed. And grant that this your noise hath chid down the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings of your desires, authority quite silent by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled, and by this pattern, not one of you should live an aged man. For other ruffians, as their fancies wrought, with self-same hand, self-reasons, and self-right, would shark on you, and men like ravenous fishes would feed on one another. You'll put down strangers, kill them, cut their throats, possess their houses, and lead the majesty of law in line to slip him like a hound. Say now, the king, as he is clement, if the offender mourn, should so much come too short of your great trespass as but to banish you. Whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbour? Go you to France or Flanders, to any German province, to Spain or Portugal? Nay, anywhere that not adheres to England. Why, you must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that, breaking out in hideous violence, would not afford you an abode on earth, whet their detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs, like as if that God owed not, nor made not you, nor that the elements were not all appropriate to your comforts, but chartered unto them? What would you think of being thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanity.
The poem I'm going to read is Refugee Blues by W.H. Auden. It's used by permission of Curtis Brown Limited, copyright 1913. All rights are reserved. The poem, first published on the eve of World War II, meditates on the plight of Jewish refugees who were forced to flee Nazi Germany but were unable to find refuge elsewhere. The poem is as relevant today, reflecting the plight of millions of refugees across the world who are fleeing conflict, persecution, and climate disaster. It is particularly poignant to remember that the response to the refugees displaced by the Second World War was the writing and signing of the UN Refugee Convention in 1951. The convention requires all signatory nations to consider applications for asylum and to deal with those asylum seekers with fairness and compassion. This year is the 70th anniversary of the UN Refugee Convention, and our government is seeking to make changes to the UK asylum system, which will make seeking asylum in the UK a more difficult and hostile process, potentially in breach of the UN Refugee Convention. Refugee Blues by W.H. Auden. Say this city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet there is no place for us, my dear, yet there is no place for us. Once we had a country and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas, you'll find it there. We cannot go there now, my dear, we cannot go there now. In the village churchyard there grows an old yew. Every spring it blossoms anew. Old passports can't do that, my dear, old passports can't do that. The consul banged the table and said, if you've got no passport, you're officially dead. But we are still alive, my dear, but we are still alive. We went to a committee, they offered me a chair, asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? But where shall we go today? Came to a public meeting, the speaker got up and said, if we let them in, they'll steal our daily bread. He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. Thought I heard thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hitler over Europe saying they must die. We were in his mind, my dear. We were in his mind. Saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin. Saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they weren't German Jews, my dear. They weren't German Jews. Went down to the harbour, stood upon the quay, saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear, only 10 feet away. Walked through a wood, saw the birds in the trees. They had no politicians and they sang it at their ease. They weren't the human race, my dear, they weren't the human race. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear, not one of them was ours. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow, 10,000 soldiers marching to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me.
This is called Small by Georg Emin because sometimes we need to remember that we're never too small to make a difference. Yes, we are small, the smallest pebble in a field of stones, but have you felt the hurtle of pebbles pinched from a mountaintop? Small as the smallest mountain stream, storing rapids, currents, unknown to wide and lazy valley rivers. Small, like the bullet in the bore of the rifle. Small as the corn waiting to sprout. Small as the pinch of salt that seasons the table. Small, yes, you have compressed us, world, into a diamond. Small, you have dispersed us, scattered like stars. We are everywhere in your vision. Small, but borders stretch from Purigan telescopes to the moon, from Ludovan back to Urartu. Small as the grains of the marvelous uranium, which cannot be broken down, put out, or consumed.
Our next poem is again by W.H. Auden and is used by permission of Curtis Brown Limited, copyright 1940. Auden was writing in the 30s at the time of the civil war in Spain and the rise of fascism across Europe. Oh, what is that sound which so thrills the ear down in the valley, drumming, drumming? Only the scarlet soldiers, dear, the soldiers coming. Oh, what is that light I see flashing so clear over the distance, brightly, brightly? Only the sun on their weapons, dear, as they step lightly. Oh, what are they doing with all that gear? What are they doing this morning, this morning? Only the usual manoeuvres, dear, or perhaps a warning. Oh, why have they left the road down there? Why are they suddenly wheeling, wheeling? Perhaps a change in their orders, dear. Why are you kneeling? Oh, haven't they stopped for the doctor's care? Haven't they reined their horses, their horses? Why, they are none of them wounded, dear. None of these forces. Oh, is it the parson they want with white hair? Is it the parson? Is it? Is it? No, they are passing his gateway, dear, without a visit. Oh, it must be the farmer who lives so near. It must be the farmer, so cunning, so cunning. They have passed the farmyard already, dear, and now they are running. Oh, where are you going? Stay with me here. Were the vows you swore deceiving, deceiving? No, I promised to love you, dear, but I must be leaving. Oh, it's broken the lock and splintered the door. Oh, it's the gate where they're turning, turning. Their boots are heavy on the floor and their eyes are burning.
This poem is called You Get Proud by Practicing by Laura Hershey. Laura Hershey, unfortunately, she's passed over. She's not with us anymore. She was a very, very vociferous disabled activist. And I think that this poem speaks for all marginalised people, whether they be refugees, whether they be people that are being persecuted for being LGBTQ or whatever, any sort of marginalisation, and the effect on your self-esteem of being labelled as being marginalised. So what I feel that what Laura is saying is that remember that you have worth, whatever other people might say about you. You have worth, and you are worth living. You get proud by practicing. If you're not proud for who you are, for what you say, for how you look, if every time you stop to think of yourself, you do not see yourself glowing with golden light, do not therefore give up on yourself. You can get proud. You don't need a better body, a purer spirit, or a PhD to be proud. You do not need a lot of money, a handsome boyfriend, or a nice car. You do not need to be able to walk or see or hear or use big complicated words or do any of the things that you just can't do to be proud. A caseworker cannot make you proud, or a doctor. You only need more practice. You get proud by practicing. There are many ways to get proud. You can try riding a horse, skiing on one leg, or playing guitar, and do it well or not so well, and be glad you tried either way. You can show something you've made to someone you respect and be happy with it, no matter what they say. You can say what you think, though you know other people may not feel the same way, and you can keep saying it, even if they tell you that you were wrong, you were crazy. You can add your voice all night to the voices of 150 others in a circle around a jailhouse where your brothers and sisters are being held for blocking buses with no lift. Or you can be one of the ones inside the jailhouse, knowing of the circle outside. You can speak your love to a friend without fear. You can find someone who will listen to you without judging you or doubting you or being afraid of you, and let yourself perhaps for the first time. These are all ways of getting proud. None of them are easy, but all of them are possible. You can all do all these things, or not just one of them, again and again. You get proud by practicing. Power makes you proud, and power comes in many fine forms, supple and rich as butterflies' wings. It is music when you practice opening your mouth and liking what you hear, because it is the sound of your own true voice. It is sunlight when you practice seeing beauty and strength in everyone, including yourself. It is dance when you practice knowing that what you do and the way you do it is the right way for you and can't be called wrong. All of these hold more power than weapons or money or lies. All of these practices bring power, and power makes you proud. You get proud by practicing. Remember, you weren't the one who made you feel ashamed, but you are the one who can make you proud. Just practice. Practice until you get proud. And once you are proud, keep practicing so you don't forget. You get proud by practicing. Thank you.